Test. Today I'm going to tell you the story of the Church of Bones. It has pretty much everything. A girl's trip to Italy, angels, creepy souvenirs, and a lot of death. So let's go ahead and set the scene. Alright, let me tell you the story of the Church of Bones. Long time ago, there was a princess named Ursula. Was she from Britain? Was she from Brittany in France? Nobody knows anymore. But what is known is that she was beautiful. From all over the world there came suitors and proposed, but Ursula said no to everyone. Because she was a Christian, which was pretty unusual at the time, but she found God and had no need for a husband. Until there came one guy. And this guy was named Eterius. And Ursula thought, oh, well, shit, this guy is cute. And she still said no. I made a promise to myself. I made a promise to God. I want to become a nun. Eterius was a prince himself, and his dad was pretty powerful. He was a king. He was furious and threatened Ursula. But Ursula just shrugged it off. Whatever, dude, the answer is still no. But that night she had a dream. An angel came to her and said, Ursula, girl, listen, you like this guy. You can get married and still be a good Christian. No worries. Just go ahead and do it. So Ursula went to him and said, all right, good news. Let's get married. But I have two conditions. The first one is you have to become a Christian. No problem for Eterius. The second is I want to go on a pilgrimage before we get married. And Eterius was like, yeah, well, if that's it, I'm game, I'm in. And then he thought and said, quick question, where do you want to go on a pilgrimage? Ursula answered, to Rome, dummy. How long will that take? And Ursula said, okay, it's Rome. It will take about 2 or 3 years. Eterius said, all right, whatever, let you do you. I will wait for you here. So Ursula and 10 of her best friends, all allegedly virgins, got on a boat and traveled from Britain or Brittany to Rome. They traveled down the river Rhine and stopped at the city of Cologne in Germany. Well, back then it wasn't Germany, but today's Germany. So they stopped at the city of Cologne and they were very warmly greeted. The bishop thought these women were the bee's knees. After you visited Rome, after you met the Pope, you have to stop here and tell me all about it. Ursula quite liked Cologne and promised to come back. And so they continued their journey down the river Rhine until they reached the city of Basel in Switzerland. There, they left the boat to continue their journey on foot. So they walked from Switzerland to Italy, through the Alps, and it was horrible. The weather was harsh. They were hungry. They got sick. They freaking walked from Switzerland to Italy. So they reached Rome, and when the Pope heard what these women did to see him and get blessed, he was impressed. And of course, he blessed them, and Ursula thought, okay, now I can go back and get married and get this other adventure going. Meanwhile, Eterius got antsy. So he decided to be a grown-up and just travel after her. And that's exactly what he did. He caught up with them and they reunited and they were very happy. And so they just had to travel home and have their wedding. But they had one more stop to make, the city of Cologne. When they reached Cologne, the city was under siege by Attila and his Huns. And Eterius was not thrilled. The Huns were famous for being amazing archers, and Eterius saw these archers on the riverbanks left and right and suggested maybe come back later when the situation is less, let's say, stabby. But Ursula said a promise is a promise. She was a hardcore and so were her girlfriends, and they were saying, come on, we said we will visit the city. We were just blessed by the freaking Pope. We are virgins. We are good Christian ladies. What's the worst that could happen? And Eterius was like, how about death? They said, death? I mean, come on. We're Christians. We're going to paradise. It's all great. We will leave this boat and visit Cologne. And that's exactly what they did. Woman after woman stepped off this boat and one fiancé. And one woman after the other and one fiancé was shot by an archer. They were dead like this. Everyone got killed, except Ursula, because Attila saw Ursula, how beautiful she was, and he wanted to marry her. But Ursula said, no way, dude, you just killed my fiance, you just killed all my friends, and you're not even a Christian, no way. And Attila said, all right, and killed her with an arrow. And so everyone was dead. The Huns were celebrating and looting the ship of the virgins and the city, and everything was well for them until Attila went to sleep that night, and he had a dream. And in his dream, 11 women were haunting him. And the next day, he was like, guys, you know what? We're done here. Pack your stuff, we're going home. And so the Huns left, and the citizens of Cologne were free, and they were happy. And they knew their freedom was because of these 11 ladies. Nobody was talking about the fiancé. And they built a church in Ursula's honor, the Basilika of Saint Ursula, and made her the patron saint of the city. Now we jump ahead a couple of 100 years, let's say 1,000 years. The legend of Ursula was told and retold. The story of Ursula was written down in Latin and later translated. And during these translations, there occurred a minor error with zeros. Someone misread an M. Suddenly, the story was not about 11 virgins who saved the city, but about 11,000 virgins who saved the city. We're now in the Middle Ages. And in the Middle Ages, the city grew, and the citizens needed more space. So they began to push the city walls, they pushed the boundaries of the city, and they dug up the ground to build new houses. And they found bones, hundreds and thousands of bones. And where did they find these bones? Right next to the cathedral built in honor of Ursula, not her fiancé. Only the ladies. So for the people back then, for the people in the Middle Ages, there was only one conclusion. These are the 11,000 virgins, man. They made an addition to the church. They built the so-called golden chamber. And in this chamber, they put all the bones. But they didn't just stack them there. They built mosaics out of thigh bones, out of elbows, out of little hand bones. They made a decorative mosaic. And they took the skulls and put every skull in precious cloth, stored them behind hand-blown glass so that everybody could see these holy bones. And they built statues of the ladies, and in these statues they included bones, part of the holy bones or even whole skulls, and they left little openings there. And why did they do that? Because they knew that pilgrims wanted to come to see these holy bones. And pilgrims want to take something back. So pilgrims brought, for example, their rosaries or other small objects, and they could, through these openings, touch these holy bones and have something that was touched by something holy, that was blessed. And if you had a little bit more money, you can buy a statue yourself. And these statues were special because they not only depicted these women, but they depicted smiling women. And why were they smiling? Because even in the face of death, they knew nothing could happen to them. And this smiling was very unusual in the Middle Ages because in art at that time, people were not smiling, but these women were in the face of death. At that time, the smile was known as the Cologne smile. Today you can visit this church. It's still there. It's about 900 years old. And when you travel to Cologne, it's a short walk away from the central station where you can see the most important landmark of the city of Cologne, the Cologne Cathedral, the Kölner Dom. But if you walk 10 minutes, you're at the Basilika of St. Ursula, and you can visit the golden chambers yourself and see the holy bones. And what about these holy bones? The original story is about 11 virgins and one fiancé, but what they found in the Middle Ages were the remains of thousands of people. Well, it is pretty much established now that these remains belong to a Roman graveyard. So what you can see in the Golden Chamber are the remains of people that lived 2,000 plus years ago in the Roman Empire, which is pretty amazing in itself. And what about the legend? Well, of course, in Cologne, the legend is still very important. Ursula has a church there, but she's also the patron saint of the city. And when you look at the city crest, you see 11 marks. And these 11 marks remember the 11 virgins who once saved the city from the Huns. And in Great Britain, there are churches that were built in honor of Saint Ursula as well. Ursula was pronounced holy, of course. And maybe you heard of the Order of the Ursulines that are named after Ursula and her ladies. But also the Virgin Islands are named after them. So they pretty much have worldwide fame, I would say. That was the story of Ursula, her 10 best friends, her fiancé, and a church full of bones. Next time, I'll take you to a different place with a different story.